Harvest Host is doing a good job of pulling people off the highways and into the communities. And the only reason I jumped off into Marion, Virginia was because there was a Host location there. Turned out, super cute town, right? And so we ended up staying at the movie theater, but then going to town for coffee and food. And so we basically got off the highway and then went and supported this local town, whereas we might not have ever known about it otherwise.
This is the Box Office Podcast. I'm Daniel Luria, the editorial director of Box Office Pro, the pulse of theatrical exhibition. And in this week's episode, Rebecca Pauley will be speaking with Joe Holland, the CEO of Harvest Hosts, an RV community concept that is pitching itself to drive-in theaters that's coming up in the feature segment of today's episode. But before then, my colleagues Chad Kennerk and the previously mentioned Rebecca Pauley will join me to go over some of the biggest headlines and preview the May slate at the box office, going over some of the wide releases with most traction and hype, because we're in the hype season, right? I can use that word. It's summer, or it's movie summer.
Yeah. We're officially going to be starting the blockbuster season this weekend, right?
Summer kind of creeps forward every year in terms of movie season, so it's kind of like, oh, where'd spring go? We are in summer now.
That's good. That's good. Lots to talk about here today, guys. But let's start with a big announcement from AMC, which has been rolling out this PLF Lite concept, AMC XL. This is a concept that is already up and running in some of its European locations. Making its way stateside, Rebecca, are the first couple of locations of AMC XL open? And what's the concept like?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, Daniel, it was announced back in November that they would be rolling out this XLF concept to theaters in the US. It's previously been rolled out at some Odeon locations in Europe. These screens are kind of, like you mentioned, a little bit premium format light. Each screen is at minimum 40 foot wide, 4K projection, the biggest non-PLF screen in the building. So we have started to see those roll out in some US locations. In Kansas City, leisure projection, largest screens outside of the ones that are branded PLF. This will allow a lot more flexibility in terms of, obviously people booking ahead for screens. Those premium large format screens tend to fill up very quickly, as anyone knows who had the same experience I did over the weekend of trying to book ahead for movie theater tickets. But yeah, we are expecting up to 50 XL locations to open up at AMC theaters by the end of the year.
Oh, that's great to hear. And what you mentioned about these premium format auditoriums really filling up, over-indexing in the post-pandemic box office, I think that's a big driver behind the 4%, you heard that right, 4% drop of Sinners in week 2. This was shot in IMAX 70 millimeter. It's only available, I think, in 6 to 8 IMAX 70 millimeter locations here in the US. But regardless of that, I think a lot of PLF audiences have been really adopting this genre-bending release from Ryan Coogler. The film opened to 48 million 2 weekends ago, made 45 million last weekend. We do expect that to slow down in this coming frame because we've got a major release from Marvel. Thunderbolts Asterisk is currently tracking to open between 80 to 90 million. Our final forecast will be available on our website by the time you listen to this episode. So always check there. There's our final updates usually get included. But guys, that's more or less at the same range that we were expecting Captain America: Brave New World to open at. The big difference here is that we expect this to perform a lot stronger on a domestic level. As we know, Captain America: Brave New World opened to 88 million back in February, only ended up grossing around 200 million domestic, which is fine, but no real overperformance there. I think we're looking at a domestic run between 220 and 270. I know that's a big range, but usually when we're forecasting an entire theatrical run, it gets really tricky because there's so many factors coming into play. But that is at least a 10% improvement in overall domestic receipts for this new Marvel title. We expect Thunderbolts to really set the stage on what we can expect from Fantastic Four this summer, and especially Avengers Doomsday, which, guys, I think by this point, we're a year out from release of the next Avengers movie. And I think the hype train starts now with Thunderbolts. It has to.
It has to. I don't know who's in the Avengers at this point, really.
Does anyone? Or does anyone care at this point? We need something to reinvigorate that, chat.
Yeah. I mean, the numbers that Marvel 8-hour-long video got just showing the chairbacks every 15 minutes. You got the original X-Men in there.
That's going to be a draw. The big question mark is this retreading of the greatest hits going to be enough to get moviegoers excited?
Yeah.
And I say this because we had I think it's fair to call it a blip with the rollout of the At the Movies campaign sneak peek showcase last week. We were very happy to promote the event, to really go big on it. But coming out of it, I think some of the reactions that I've heard have expressed a lot of disappointment here in the fact that a lot of that 70-minute show involved a lot of trailers that had already been out there. It really wasn't too much exclusive material. Of course, I think there was also the concern where no titles that were going to be showcased were marketed to moviegoers. So you got a lot of moviegoers going in there expecting things that were never going to be part of the program, that the rumor mill just got out of control and assuming there would be trailers for certain movies that just were never there. And then you add a $3 ticket price, which is accessible, yes, which is going to charity, yes. But at the end of the day, we had moviegoers pay an admission fee to watch 70 minutes worth of trailers they could have seen at home. That didn't go over well. We have to call it out like it is. We have to be fair in saying that we promote a lot of concepts, but we also have to be self-critical in knowing when things don't work and when the moviegoers express that dissatisfaction. My concern here, moving forward, is that going back to the well, giving moviegoers what they already have seen and have available at home, like we saw the sneak peek showcase, isn't always the best idea. Nostalgia can only go so far. So what I'm really hoping from Thunderbolts is to add a little bit of freshness into this Marvel Cinematic Universe, because we've had a lot of false starts with this Kang thing that didn't really get up and running. Then you bring back Robert Downey Jr. in a new character. You're introducing things left and right.
And the concept, which is the sort of anti-heroes come together and make good. I mean, that's definitely a concept that we've seen in other superhero movies, granted,
several times
across the aisle at DC, several times with several nearly identical titles. So yeah, definitely, I'm curious to see how this one does. I'm curious to see how the marketing on the Fantastic Four picks up after Thunderbolts comes out, and presumably there's some setup in Thunderbolts for Fantastic Four that will kind of help kick marketing along for that second title. But yeah, definitely curious about this one. I think there's a 4DX screening of Thunderbolts tonight. I was kind of debating, like, superhero movies in 4DX, like, you just end up getting punched a lot.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a bumpy ride. But I think it goes back to what we've seen from the success of Sinners. You have to give moviegoers something fresh and exciting that makes them look forward to their night out at the movies. And that's what we really expect from Thunderbolts, with, frankly, the B team of superheroes on the Marvel side, which is, it's self-aware of that. And I think it really leans on that. It leverages it for a couple of laughs and maybe some plot points. But we don't have to go back that far. Like I did mention, that sneak peek showcase from last week was a missed opportunity. We have to call it as such. The moviegoers are saying that. And although we like the concept, we want to promote these ideas, we have to learn from that and really lean into the fact that when we get people to come out to the theater, we have to focus on this being an experience that they can't get anywhere. And if Thunderbolts can do that with something fresh and exciting instead of Avengers Light, I think there's something here this weekend.
Did you see it at the AMC Empire 25, one of the poster series for Thunderbolts, where the marketing is bolt themed? There are different sorts of hardware bolts on the posters. Obviously, listeners can't see our faces right now, but that, Daniel, was more or less my reaction.
Yeah, that's stretching things a bit. Chad, how do you feel about this hype train right now, moving on to the opening weekend of Thunderbolts?
I'm encouraged because what we've been seeing on social media, some of the early reactions, critics' early social reactions have been really, really positive. Have been saying that it's really fun. It feels like what Marvel used to be before the multiverse got so complicated. And apparently there's a doozy of a post-credits scene that sets stuff up.
if we just talk about, we need something new and fresh and exciting, maybe the concept isn't as exciting, just looking at the bare bones of it. But I mean, we are looking at a lot of, some characters who people haven't seen in a while, some characters who are completely new to the franchise. I definitely think if those hit, there's potential there for a renewed interest in the franchise. I just hope that is something that is channeled into the theatrical releases moving forward and not kind of shunted over to the TV side of the equation, which understandably was the sort of seemed like the main priority for Disney for several years with their Marvel Studios products.
Yeah, it really did feel that way for a while, but hopefully we get a nice fresh restart from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We said that back in February with Captain America: Brave New World.
But that was Q1, and we're in a post Minecraft world now, so we can
Yeah.
hit the refresh button on it.
No, but that's a warning I think that I've been saying for a while now is you see Captain America on a release slate and you just go immediately to the other Captain America movies expecting a similar result, but we're in a very different place with these franchises. Audiences' relation to these heroes, to these characters, is starkly different than it was in 2019. And I don't think there's a single Thunderbolt that the general public can name. And I think that's going to be okay if the movie is good. Which, to be fair, my friends in the industry that have seen it in early trade screenings have all said glowing things about this movie. They've called this the best post-Avengers Endgame film that they've seen, which is great. And that's really what we're banking on. But those days where Marvel could walk out with a talking raccoon and a monosyllabic tree and make $400 million, I think they're going to be harder to come by.
Well, I think that's a little dismissive of what James Gunn accomplished with the Guardians movies.
He did a lot more. Now he's rebuilding
Yeah.
that at DC. You're absolutely right. But it didn't come easy. It was what I'm trying to say. It didn't come easy for James Gunn in those Guardians of the Galaxy movies. But at the time, the Marvel brand was such an exclusively cinematic event that people were willing to go in and give anything a try. I'm not sure we're there anymore. I'm not. I think right now movies really have to perform. And I think Guardians really performed. I saw the first one. I thought it was great, and I think the
Third one
sequels did
did
well.
pretty well, all things considered. It was one of the top movies of the year. And when we talk about the past of the MCU, definitely the specter of Avengers Endgame looms very large, but that was the apex of it. There were many years when the Marvel Cinematic Universe was not such the reliable heavy hitter that it was for a very short period of time. Like the first Captain America movie didn't make all that much money at the time.
Yeah.
Even Winter Soldier, which was regarded as, it introduced Bucky Barnes. Well, no, it didn't introduce. It introduced
It
him
introduced the
in
Russo
his new
brothers into the
iteration.
universe. Yeah.
But yeah, we can't. We can't keep comparing everything to Endgame to 2019. It's just pointless.
Well, we've got a big movie to look forward to this weekend, which is important. And we're right now on a hot streak where up until April, there were only 2 weekends in 2025 that had grossed over $100 million. Those were I think the first 2 weekends in February, if I'm not
It's
mistaken.
weekends, not films.
No, not just entire weekends that had not made over 100 million. 2 up until April. And since April, we've been in a hot streak. Every single weekend has been over 100 million. We expect that to continue in this first frame of May. And now let's continue looking down the line for the other May releases, guys, because we've got a packed schedule. The only week frame of this month is going to be the May 9th frame, where we expect Thunderbolts to hold particularly well. But because of that, everybody's getting out of the way. So we've got a lot of opportunity here for something to break out, something to hold a little bit stronger. You've got Clown in a Cornfield from IFC Films with no horror competition. And this might be one of those low-budget horror hits that just lingers in theaters for a while.
Terrifier 3, or sort of, or the David Dastmalchian one from last year that was like
Late Night with the Devil.
Yeah, that's
There you
the
go.
one, something like
But
that.
I don't think it has that Terrifier 3 branding yet, but it does have an open corridor for something like this. I think IFC has this title very well positioned
It has
in
a
that
good
May 9th
title.
weekend.
Yeah, I was going to say the title tells you what you need to know. So
And it's a good poster. I don't know if you guys have seen it yet. So it's one of those
Mhm.
movie-going options where, like Chad says, the title sells the movie. I'm not sure you can say the same thing about something called Shadow Force from Lionsgate.
Yeah. I think that was one of the two Lionsgate presentations ago. It was one of the, it felt at the time like 4 or 5 or 6 badass super action couples movies. There was a Dave Bautista one. I think this is another one of those
I
that's
think they were all Dave
been on the
Bautista
schedule for
ones.
a while.
Yeah, like this just seems like a movie from last summer from Lionsgate, which is now positioned to go 1 week after Thunderbolts. I'm not sure that's going to be the best place for it, but I think it's plug and play there on the Shadow Force side. Then we've got another counter programmer here from Briarcliff Entertainment, a jukebox musical take on Romeo and Juliet called Juliet and Romeo. These three titles we all expect to perform on the single digit level. Best case scenario, combined, they hit 10 million on opening weekend. That's to give you an idea of the sort of drop we're going to have on May 9th. So I do think this great momentum is going to have a little bit of a speed bump on that May 9th frame, but we do expect business to pick up once we get to May 16th. We've got two films here. The extended feature-length music video movie thing from The Weeknd called Hurry Up Tomorrow. That has some fan screenings, I think in
It's a
Dolby
companion
Atmos.
piece to an album that came out in January.
Yikes.
I don't get it. It's not like the album's even coming out at the same time as the
No,
film.
it's been out. I don't think I can name a
Yeah,
song from the album either.
it's strange.
But listen, it's coming out. I think it's going to be another single digit opening weekend for that title. We'll have to see how much that fandom steps up for a movie like that. It doesn't have any PLF screens. I think it has a very limited sort of like fan event. It's select PLF concepts nationwide, but I don't expect too much from Hurry Up Tomorrow on the opening weekend front. I am, however, very appreciative that Chad and I got to see The Weeknd perform a couple songs at the Lionsgate presentation at CinemaCon. I think that's going to be the one thing I take away from this title.
Number one thing I think you guys made me really FOMO out about having missed it out due to having COVID was that also out the same weekend as Hurry Up Tomorrow. That the Final Destination's Bloodline extended sequence was apparently. I was already excited.
Yeah.
You guys really
yeah.
It was fun.
Yeah, it was fun. It got great reactions. I couldn't watch all of it.
It was
I
gross.
mean, it's getting IMAX, right? It's.
I think it should be. I don't know what the PLF footprint's going to be, but it's a clear movie that should get some premium screens. It's a fun time that keeps audiences participating and guessing from what Chad and I saw. We have a very ambitious projection for this far out. This movie's opening on May 16th. We're currently tracking it between 40 and 50 million. Now, realistically, I think somewhere in the 30s makes a lot more sense. But we do expect this to overperform, which is why we're a little bit higher than I think most folks are with this title. So when it comes to Final Destination, we have to also build into the fact this is something that exists in clip form on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. It is one of the most pervasive clipped movies on social media. If they can lean
That's
into
what it's
that,
designed for. It's Rube Goldberg death scenes. I mean, it seems almost like it's a very well positioned franchise, just conceptually, to have a nice little rebirth period now.
No, totally agreed. That's why we're bullish on this to overperform. You know, the $40 to $50 million range, let's not forget, is where Sinners opened to. But as I said, I think the more realistic, grounded forecast we could give to that is somewhere in the 30s. I don't think anyone's going to be disappointed with an opening weekend in the 30s for that title coming up from Warner Brothers. On May 23rd, which is the kickoff of Memorial Day weekend, we've got a number of titles, which I love to say because it's not just one movie. There's two huge movies opening that extended weekend, but we also have a couple of movies sneaking in here that could play a role in the marketplace. We have the wide expansion of Friendship, the new comedy from A24 starring Paul Rudd and Tim Robinson. I saw this movie last week at a press screening. It is not a wide appeal comedy. It is very much a niche comedy. A lot
But
of
if you're going to a
Cable
Tim
Guy
Robinson
vibes.
movie, like,
Yeah, you know what you're getting into.
Who has seen I Think You Should Leave is
that audience is bigger than I think a lot of people realize. And I think that audience will
Eric
show
and
up.
I, we have our tickets. We're going.
Exactly. People will
he's
go.
one of those guys who like quotes Tim Robinson obsessively.
I do too. And it doesn't matter that this isn't going to be, you know, it reminds me a lot of Jim Carrey's Cable Guy, tonally. But that was a film with a huge established star. This is a movie with a countercultural star of the last couple of years that I think has a big cult following. I think there's going to be a surprising amount of business for that, but also in the single digits. Let's not go crazy. Of course, this is going to open in limited release in select cities, I believe, beginning on May 9th, if I'm not mistaken.
I
So,
could see it having legs, and A24 tends to be pretty good with not pushing
yeah.
things to VOD right away.
Yeah, I think we need to let that kind of grow and find its audience. You're going to find the word of mouth for this title, starting with its platform release that's imminent here on the schedule. But now let's go for the other title that I think is going to counter-program quite well from Angel Studios. Guys, I already have my tickets to the last rodeo. I was quick to buy them. We haven't had a good rodeo movie for years, and I'm excited to go to this one. I think there's a lot of potential here outside of the cities for this movie to hit an underserved audience.
I'm trying to remember what the last rodeo movie even was. Like, the only other one I can think of is like
The
Wild
Writer from
Fiction.
The
Chloe
Writer,
Zhao.
yeah.
Yeah, from Chloe
Oh,
Zhao.
that's right. Okay.
But I don't think by design, The Writer was not supposed to be a crowd-pleasing movie. I think this has vibes of a movie you go for an experience, to have a good time. The Writer was something different, something of its own merit, but that was an award season play. This is a Memorial Day weekend movie. And I'm really looking forward to this one.
I'm curious to see. I mean, Angel Studios has I think tackled just about every genre you can tackle. That's one of the things to really admire about the studios. They don't limit themselves to one particular sort of film. But I'm excited. I mean, I like a sports film.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's one I'm waiting kind of to see how word of mouth shapes out on it. But yeah, it definitely has potential.
Feels like it's built on the underdog story.
Yeah, with a couple of shades maybe from the generational passing of the torch from that we saw from Top Gun Maverick, that we will see again in F1 later this summer. I think that can make a nice impact as a counter programmer starting on Memorial Day weekend. And of course, the two blockbusters we've got scheduled for that frame from Paramount, we've got Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. Now, whether it's the final movie or not, I think very much depends on the global box office for this title.
We're being very delicate in how it is not the final film in the mission. Nothing's ever the final film.
Didn't Friday the 13th pull that on us, or was it Nightmare on Elm Street that did that?
Resident Evil did
There
the
were a
final
couple. There's
chapter,
been a
and then
couple of
another film
things where you
after
have the
that.
final chapter and then
Yeah.
produce more sequels and spinoffs. Don't write that off here.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, potential for this one. If you look, the highest grossing Memorial Day debut up until this year is another Tom Cruise franchise entry in the previously mentioned Top Gun Maverick. So it's Memorial Day weekend is not like the typical release day corridor for the Mission Impossible films. So it's a change up on the part of Paramount, but it seems to me to be a really good window, a really good idea. We'll have to see. Daniel, what are we projecting on this one for the 3-day now?
It's moving because the pre-sale period just started this week on Monday. So this is going to be evolving really this week. So by next week's episode, we'll have a much better sense of where this Mission Impossible title is going to open to. Right now, it's tracking for a record 3-day opening for all the Mission Impossible movies. That record is currently held by Mission Impossible Fallout, which opened to 61 million. It wouldn't surprise me if Final Reckoning does something around 70, maybe the mid to high 60s, can maybe even cross over to the low $70 million range. The awareness is very high on this title, but we do have to understand that even coming off of a Top Gun Maverick sized blockbuster for Tom Cruise, these Mission Impossible movies haven't been opening weekend behemoths. You have 3-day frames, like I said, that are highlighted by Fallout's 61 million and that have been a little bit softer over the years. You've got a $54 million opening weekend from 2023's Dead Reckoning Part 1, for example.
Which, I mean, it's a franchise that feels premium formats over index across the board, but it feels like the spectacle element and the stunts makes getting that premium ticket almost feel more essential for the Mission Impossible franchise. I know Eric and I were seeing it on I think on the Wednesday after it comes out, because that was the first time we could get proper IMAX tickets. So it's
Oh yeah,
definitely one of
the
those that kind of
PLF tickets are going already like
get them
crazy,
now.
which is why our forecasting is that high, right? I mean, but we do have to see how this levels out throughout the coming days. Right now, everything is positive for this Mission Impossible title. Now, part of the marketing for this film has really been leveraged on, let's say, a greatest hits montage of all of the previous Mission Impossible movies. Chad, do you think that's going to help this movie with audiences today saying, hey, you liked all these other movies that you could see at home, watch this one? Or are we going to get into the territory that I think Furiosa was caught up at last year? Actually, I think maybe last year to the day. I think it was released around this time.
That and
Where,
Garfield.
well, yeah, Furiosa, I think, opened, and a lot of us went to it expecting to get Fury Road, and were reminded just by how much of a better movie Fury Road was. Nothing against Furiosa. Great movie, but it was no Fury Road. Do you think that could factor into this Mission Impossible title?
I know in some cases I was in the minority. I felt like the last one, Dead Reckoning, was actually maybe my favorite so far in the entire franchise.
Good.
And I'm
Russ Fisher, our co-host here, also loves that title.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of just the franchise overall, with the exception of maybe two. But no, I think the challenge is possibly audiences that haven't stayed with this franchise, maybe feeling like, am I going to be able to go in and see this without catching up on the others?
I mean, the franchise is full MacGuffins anyway. You do not need to know what's going on.
No,
and I think if they can sell that sort of plug and play element of it. I mean, one thing's for sure, Tom Cruise is going to promote the hell out of that thing. Chad, you pointed out he did some social postings of him like doing the thumbs up in front of the Sinners poster. He shows up to promote theatrical.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even though this was initially designed as a part 1, part 2, with the title change, with even some of the stuff that we're seeing in the trailer, I think they'll set it up in a way that if you haven't seen the previous film, or maybe several of the previous films, that you could walk in and just enjoy the experience of this as an action movie.
Yeah, I think if you lean into the stunts, if you lean into the wow factor of this title, you're going to get audiences to come in and support this, as we're currently tracking it to be a record weekend for the franchise. It's a 4-day frame. I think the ceiling for this title on the extended holiday weekend is 100 million. I think that might be a little bit ambitious right now, but mid 70s up, like 75 plus, I think makes sense here for an opening weekend.
For what we expect to be the second highest opening of Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah, not bad for second place, as you mentioned, Rebecca, because Lilo and Stitch, this is going to be a monster, guys. It's already tracking incredibly well. We currently have an opening weekend range on the 3-day between 120 and 140 million for Lilo and Stitch. If you factor in the Memorial Day weekend as a whole, the extended frame could go up to 165 million. That's the ceiling that we have. Now, I think realistically 135 and up for the holiday weekend all in makes sense. But between these two movies, guys, they might come in over the holiday weekend and just clear 200 million on their own.
This is one that I'm curious about, because it's not, I mean, a lot of the films in this sort of Disney animation remake franchise that we've seen are of the Disney Renaissance, the Disney Golden Age, and it's things that maybe we grew up seeing, and now this takes place a little bit later on. This is one that really gained traction over the years on home video. I think it's one of those things that maybe adults younger than us maybe have like it came along a little bit later, so it feels like it definitely feels like one of those that just because people maybe in their 40s are like, what's a Lilo and Stitch? What's a Lilo? Is it Lilo? Is it Lilo? Like I feel like this is I don't know if it's fair to say it's a sleeper hit considering how well it's tracking, but it's definitely something that, like, if you'd asked me last year, I would not have thought that we're looking at 100 million plus potential opening for the Lilo and Stitch movie.
You say that this
Yeah.
isn't like golden age of Disney, but
Mhm.
unfortunately, this is a wake-up call on how old we are. It's been 30
Yeah, exactly.
years
No.
since...
Oh
No,
my
wait a minute. It's
gosh.
been 30 years since the first Toy Story came out in theaters. 30 years. And in
Wow.
1995, and I can remember where I was as a kid in 1995 when Toy Story came out. You know what movie was 30 years old in 1995 from Disney? Mary Poppins. And that
Jesus.
looked
Mm.
ancient. That looked ancient back then. By the time 95 rolls around, and you already have things like Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin during that era. Toy Story seems like the big way forward. You have to go, way back to see just how long these titles age. So Lilo and Stitch is a little bit older than we give it credit for being. It wasn't part of our
Well,
childhood.
it's like traditional animation. It's before Disney went like all in on CGI. So, I mean, we've seen they're doing a live action remake of Moana. So it's not like they're only keeping to the more hand drawn aesthetic for remakes.
Lilo and Stitch, if it opens to 130 on a 3-day basis, which it can, we're tracking it that way. We said between 120 and 140 on a 3-day. And then if Mission Impossible can hit, 70, which I think would be ambitious, but not out of the question. I think somewhere in the 60s makes a lot of sense for Final Reckoning. But the way it's selling right now is suggesting 70 plus. That means that combined, Mission Impossible and Lilo and Stitch give us $200 million.
If it gets 135, that makes it the third highest opening in this theatrically released Disney remake franchise of all time, which doesn't necessarily tell this whole story. Obviously, this is a franchise where things have started with a little bit of Chicken Little Skies Falling. This is a flop narrative, and then surprise, they
They always pick up at the
continue
end.
to take
All
care
of
of
them, right?
kids movies over the summer.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely big numbers on this one.
We remember our colleague and member of our forecasting panel, Chris Randleman, saying during our CinemaCon episode series that he expects this to be the highest grossing Memorial Day weekend of all time. The same way we hit a record over Thanksgiving, he thinks the slate is healthy enough here in Memorial Day weekend. I have to agree with him. I think there's great potential in here. Not only with these two titles, you've also got, like we mentioned, Friendship that goes for a segment of the audience that does not have a movie that weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got Last Rodeo for part of the country, for an older male audience in the center of the country that would love a movie like this. I think everything here is lined up with a very diverse slate coming in. And let's not forget, it's going to be the first weekend holdover of a fun popcorn horror title like Final Destination Bloodlines. This is a popcorn weekend. All these movies are the type of movies I want to see in an air-conditioned theater with a large soda and a big bucket of popcorn and forget about the world outside.
And they're movies that people have been seeing posters for when they've been going to see Minecraft in
Exactly.
the gazillions.
Posters, trailers. There's a lot to like where we are right now heading into Memorial Day weekend. And that's not it for May, guys. We've got 2 more titles on the final weekend of May. On May 30th, we've got from A24 from the directors of Talk to Me, Bring Her Back, which is going to be a horror counter-programmer. I'm not expecting too much of that. I think somewhere in the single digits, to be quite frank right now, for this title, but it's hitting a niche in the market. And counter-programming that is Karate Kid Legends. Karate Kid Legends is going to be the real focal point here on the May 30th weekend, currently tracking between $35 and $45 million on opening weekend. I'm not sure how to feel about this one, just because I haven't seen too much marketing for this. I think the market's getting a little bit crowded, but people love that Cobra Kai show. Nostalgia to a certain point sells, and it's not nostalgia alone here. It's not the Ralph Macchio show. There's a couple of cross-generational things going on with this title. Do we think this is going to be a breakout hit beyond opening weekend is the big question.
I was never particularly into the Karate Kid initial wave of movies. Cobra Kai I'm really not familiar with, but I mean I know when they remade the rebootquel, what have you, of Karate Kid in 2010, that did surprisingly well. Granted, 2010, it's 15 years ago.
15 years ago, yeah.
I think
I
it
mean, all
speaks
those
to
people are grown up.
it's before it's I think there's potential there. Yeah, I think this is a franchise that has surprisingly strong legs with which to sweep other legs. Sweep the legs. That's a thing, right? I
That's
almost
a
said
good
that.
call out. I
Yeah.
like that. Was this a big movie for you growing up, Chad? The original Karate Kid?
Yeah, they were. I think I've said before, they all kind of like blend together to me. I remember watching all of them, but I couldn't necessarily tell you what happens in each one. I know my wife is actually really excited about this one because she was a huge fan of the Hilary Swank Karate Kid.
That's a really good one. That's like an underrated like franchise reboot cool thing. I echo that. I was a massive fan of the original, of the first one. I saw that on John Avildsen, director of the original Rocky, basically makes Rocky for kids with this kid from New Jersey, like moving into pretty boy California territory and having to fight his way out of it. The skeleton suits and the motorcycle, like the dirt bikes, great aesthetic. I love the original.
That shower curtain Halloween costume is someone who just that sticks out to me. I'm like, this movie has one of the greatest Halloween costumes of all time.
The sequel, though, Karate Kid 2, one of the best original soundtracks ever, period. I'll go out and say that. I think Karate Kid 2 is damn good. Like really, really, really good. Karate Kid 3, I kind of forget about. I think there's like a Steven Seagal double, basically, or like a wannabe Steven Seagal. Your Kirkland signature Steven Seagal is in it. And they go back to California. I wasn't completely in love with that third one. But Hilary Swank, I think, made it interesting. I missed the Jaden Smith thing because...
I did too.
We weren't the right age.
Yeah.
No, yeah. But there's an audience that now probably has children of their own that saw that growing up, that might come back. And for everybody else, that Cobra Kai show is bigger than I ever imagined something like that could be. So
I think that's where maybe the strength is with this film, is it's pulling all of those threads together.
Yeah. We'll have to see how they pull it off. I'm not sure that the last Jurassic World sequel did that. Remember, you had the Jurassic World cast with the Jurassic Park cast come back, and the movie
But there
wasn't
hasn't
very
been
good.
a really good Jurassic Park movie since the first one.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say. Like, you really have to make sure that the movie itself is good. You know, we can talk about tracking all we can, about hype, trailers, posters, but really at the end of the day, beyond opening weekend, what makes real money is if the movie can connect with audiences. And I just have to go back to Sinners. How much did we, myself in particular, criticize the marketing campaign for Sinners? We were very hard on the marketing team behind that title, and we were wrong. Thank God we were wrong, because that title has done absolutely great in the box office, not based on the marketing campaign or lack thereof, based on the film itself, based on the film on its own merits. And that's really at the heart of this business.
It released some things in the trailers that it should not have spoiled, and I will die on that hill, but it clearly did not hurt. It clearly did not hurt them. So...
Well, that wraps up our analysis segment, going over the May titles coming to a theater near you. Coming up after our break is Rebecca's interview with Harvest Host CEO Joel Holland, talking about his RV community network and how that is going to be adapted into the drive-in community. Really interesting concept. If you operate a drive-in, stick around, because this is going to be
it's a good
for you.
Summer movie season interview. It's a good summer sort of episode, the hype and the spectacle, and
looking forward to it. That's coming up right after the break.
Got an empty parking spot at your theater or drive-in? Turn that into extra revenue without spending a dime. Harvest Hosts connects you with 250,000 travelers looking for unique places to stay. All you need is a spot for at least one RV to park overnight. No RV services or hookups required. In return, guests catch a movie, grab snacks, and support your business. There's no cost to join, and you're always in control of your schedule. Learn more at harvesthost.com/hosting.
And I'm joined today on the podcast by Joel Holland, CEO of Harvest Hosts. Joel, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Rebecca. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm really intrigued by Harvest Hosts, what I read about you guys. Can you give us kind of a background on what Harvest Hosts is for our listeners who maybe might want to use it to find their next vacation spot, or we'll be speaking about the drive-in component of that a bit later in the interview.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So Harvest Hosts is a membership club for RVers, and we have 250,000 RV members, and then we connect them with 9,000 really kind of unique, upscale, and fun experiences where they can stay overnight around the country. So that includes farms, wineries, breweries, distilleries, golf courses, and as you mentioned, drive-in movie theaters. So it's just really a more unique and exciting way to do an overnight stay. So we're not replacing campgrounds, but we're kind of throwing some extra fun experiences into the mix. And it's an exclusive benefit for our members. So most of these locations, you can only camp if you are a Harvest Host member. And you don't pay anything to stay for the night. So there's no cost to stay, but there is an understanding that you'll support the business that you visit. So if you go to the drive-in movie theater, you're probably going to eat some popcorn and watch a movie. If you go to a winery, go to the tasting room. So it's great for the businesses in our program, and it's great for our members who get these really fun, elevated experiences.
It's awesome. I was mentioning before we recorded that my parents have gotten into RVing, and they have the pass to do all the campgrounds and the national parks. Obviously, those are easy to dig up. But if you are looking for something a little bit off the beaten path, I mean, the research you would have to do on your own to find where you would want to go would maybe be a bit daunting. You kind of take that out of the equation.
Absolutely. And so, especially with 9,000 locations, we're the largest private, campground, basically program in the world. And so they're everywhere. And so as you're traveling now, we're in every state. You really can't go more than a few miles without finding a Harvest Host location to stay. And that's great because, there's a lot of wonderful places to stay.
Nice. How many drive-ins do you have in your network?
We are up to 43 drive-ins. And it's a relatively new category, right? Something we only started doing in the last couple of years. And it makes perfect sense, right? Like the drive-ins are amazing. They're kind of from a bygone era, but very popular because people are looking for that, return to just the good old days. And what's better than pulling into a drive-in movie theater and sitting, and watching a film, especially from the comfort of your RV. And so we have 43 of them now. They're all over the country. We're adding more and more of them. And no surprise, very, very popular with our members.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, it seems like it fits perfectly in with the Harvest Host kind of mission. I mean, drive-ins are so, like you mentioned, there's a nostalgia element, but also they're just really great. I mean, everything has to be an experience now. It's Instagrammable, and drive-ins really nailed that. There are some really neat ones doing cool programming. So logistically, I mean, what are the questions that you get from drive-in owners about what am I going to have to provide to be a member of the network? Like what's on me to do? How difficult is this going to be? Because I know drive-ins, they tend to be run by a small group of very passionate people, maybe don't have extra time on their hands to be doing a ton. What logistically, how does that work?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I would say all of our, thousands of businesses we work with, they're all small businesses. They're typically run by, either an individual proprietor or mom and pop, shop. And the one commonality is they're busy, right? They're busy. They're doing everything themselves. They're working their tails off. They don't need more work, but they do need more customers typically. And especially in this day and age where things are getting more expensive and more uncertain, a little extra revenue is great too. And so, what we tell these small businesses, and I'll use the drive-in movie theater as an example, you don't need to provide anything to our members other than a place to park and, safely spend the night. So no hookups, no water, no sewer, no electricity. RVs are all built to boondock. They're built to go off the grid for a long time. And all these members are looking for is like a night to stay. And so they're equipped. So, a requirement to be in our program as an RVer, you need to have a self-contained RV, which means that you will show up to the drive-in movie theater with everything you need to spend the night. You don't need, meaning you have your own bathroom, you have your own water on board, your own cooking facilities, and you will then leave, leaving nothing. So it's the leave no trace mentality. So you don't need to provide anything to our members other than a safe place to park for the night. And the expectation from our members is that they're going to support your business. And I can give some numbers there. On average, our members we request they spend at least $30 a night, supporting the business. On average, I think it's closer to $50 that our members spend. It's the honor system, so some are way above and beyond, and some are different. But on average, our hosts make an extra $15,000 to $20,000 per year from the program, from our members directly, and we don't take any of that. So we don't charge our hosts to be in the program. So if you're a drive-in movie theater, there's never a cost to be a part of Harvest Hosts. There's no initiation fee. There's no long-term contract. We don't take any of the money our members spend. It really is just a reciprocal, like you scratch our back, we'll scratch yours relationship. I like to call it just a great free marketing program. If you join our program, we will then tell our 250,000 members about you, put you on the map, put you in the newsletter, and you'll start having RVers show up the next day. It'll happen fast. So if you have the space for RVers to park, I would seriously consider the program. It's great.
A safe place to park is pretty much what drive-ins are all about anyway. I mean,
Totally.
You have space during the daytime. I mean, it's pretty empty.
I went last year with my family to Park Place Drive-In in Marion, Virginia, and I think it's a pretty good representation of the typical experience. They have all these rows for the cars to park looking at the big screen. And in Marion, they basically reserve the back row for RVs, and you can park like 4 or 5 of them lined up. And it's really easy because they can drive right in, drive through the circle, and drive out. So it's like designed really well for RVs. And so if you have extra space, basically if you're finding that, every night you're not packed, or maybe you're packed on weekends, but on weeknights you could use some more visitors. You can also just say, hey, we're only going to open this up to Harvest Host members on weeknights. So the host has complete control over what they offer and when. Maybe just Tuesday nights, so whatever works for you. But yeah, maybe you just reserve the back row for the RVs.
It's great because, some drive-in theaters have that capability to, stay in overnight, like have a sleep in your car overnight and have like an all-night movie marathon. But like you say, any amount of money that you can bring in, I'm sure there have to be a good number of drive-ins who would like to do that, but don't really know where to start and how to get people in the know about it and provide the infrastructure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the really cool thing about this program is a lot of small businesses don't know that there are millions of RVers out there, and they're traveling, and they're like your parents. They're just having fun on the road. They love seeing new towns. They love new experiences, and they love supporting, the businesses that are providing those experiences. So it's a great avenue to tap into this resource of people who are already on the roads. And so I often say, Harvest Host is doing a good job of pulling people off the highways and into the communities. Mm-hmm. Because, in the example of, the one in Marion, I think it's off of either off of 64 or 81, but one of the major thoroughfares, we're driving down the highway. And the only reason I jumped off into Marion, Virginia, was because there was a host location there. Turned out, super cute town, right? And so we ended up staying at the movie theater, but then going to town for coffee and food. And so we basically got off the highway and then went and supported this local town, whereas we might not have ever known about it otherwise.
Mm-hmm. And that's what's great about so many of those. Great towns up in the mountains of North Carolina, where my family's based. Like, there's so many cool little towns, like you'd never know about it.
Yeah, especially if you're like us from Colorado, right? And we're passing through, we just don't know the local areas like the locals do. And the Harvest Host experience basically makes you a local for the day, which is kind of nice.
What's some of the feedback that you've gotten from drive-in owners? How is that relationship kind of back and forth? If there is an issue or a question, or if anything comes up that they'd like to get in touch with you about.
Yeah, it was funny. So Jerry, who runs Park Place Drive-In, I have a little quote from him here. He said he first learned about Harvest Hosts at the UDITOA, the United Drive-In Theater Owners Association convention.
We know it well.
Yeah. And he said he decided to give it a try, hoping for a small boost in business. And with the movie industry experiencing a decline in sales at the time, he believed joining Harvest Hosts could help attract more visitors. And then his quote, I love it. I thought I might get a little extra foot traffic, but I didn't realize I'd get almost 400 of them. People are coming from all over the U.S. to my little drive-in. It's truly a win-win situation. And as of today, I pull his stats, he's had over 1,070 RVers stay with him now in the last 2 years. And, that's great. That's a lot of extra foot traffic.
And that's, like you say, it's completely, up to the drive-ins as to how many people, how many RVs they're booking, how many, what days of the week, what times. You're not going to all of a sudden have an influx of RVers just show up.
Right. And you can set your limits, right? Like I think Jerry may allow 4, RVs to spend a night. So you can decide how many members. And we have a fully baked booking system. And so it's not like he has to keep picking up the phone and saying, sorry, we're full or don't come. It's all done through our booking system. So Jerry can say, hey, I have 4 spots available. We're available Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday as an example. And then our members can see the calendar, click book. It goes to Jerry as a text message and an email. He can approve or deny it. He can look at the feedback and reviews of this member to make sure like it's a fit. He can learn a little more about their rig. So all the control is in the hands of the business owner. And they say approve, and now it's all set. That is now blocked off the calendar. So if there were 4 spots, now there's only 3 spots, all automated. So you'll never be overrun.
And okay, we have X number of people coming in. Let's make sure we have all the concessions we need.
Yes.
We have all the manpower we need. Obviously, concessions. I mean, if I RV'd at a drive-in, I'd just be eating the wonderful drive-in food the whole time.
I mean, that was the best part was we were able to just make a whole night of it because we could eat we could eat at the concession and watch the movie, and we didn't have to go anywhere. So it was the perfect solution to dinner and entertainment.
So for anyone who might be curious, want to talk a little bit more about it or want to be involved in the program, what's the best way to get in touch with you guys?
Yeah, easiest way is go to harvesthosts.com, and on the top navigation, you'll see a link for hosts or become a host, and as simple as filling out the form. So just tell us a little bit about your business, and our team will then reach out and start a conversation and actually help build the profile, on our website, ask you for some photos, ask you to tell us what kind of products you have to sell, et cetera, et cetera. But basically it's a full concierge service. Our team will do all the heavy lifting because again, we know that small business owners are busy and they don't need more work. So
and
this
the
is
RV community. I mean,
totally.
Exactly.
Exactly. So we know the questions to ask about, hey, what is parking like? How long, how big of a rig could you park, et cetera. So yes, we will help get the listing built. And then you tell us when you want it to go live, and we will put it in our next newsletter that goes out to, 250,000 RVers. And it's then on the map. So as they search and start looking for places to book on the website or on our app, you'll show up and the RVers will come.
And it's perfect timing now as we rev up into the summer movie season. It's drive-in season. I love it. What movie did you see at the Park Place?
I think it was called Jumpman, and it had just come out. And it was about the stuntman who they were trying to kill the whole time.
Oh, the Fall Guy.
Fall Guy, not Jumpman. Fall Guy. I had the correct conceptual words, but not the right movie. Yeah, Fall Guy.
Oh, that sounds like a great drive. I saw that in not a drive-in. I'm jealous.
It was really fun, and we had these little emergency hand crank radios on board, and so I actually just cranked the little hand crank radio and turned it on that. It was kind of fun.
Awesome. I mean, I know for drive-in owners, one of the annoyances maybe is all these different types of cars. Like, how do they turn the radio on but keep the headlights off? How do they do RVs? You RV guys, how to do this.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Just make sure you have a radio with you. That was I hadn't really thought that through because the radio was in the truck and we could have sat in the truck because we have a fifth wheel. If you have a drivable RV, it's easy peasy. But I was in the back of the fifth wheel. I'm like, where am I going to get a radio? Now, a lot of these you can pull up on your phone and stream off the phone as well. But I wanted that authentic radio experience. And so I thought, we do have these literally emergency radios that you hand crank to get power. And so I tuned to the correct frequency, and it was kind of a fun experience using a hand crank radio.
That sounds really fun. I'm going to have to pop into my parents' RV, be like, hey, I'm going with you this next time.
Yeah.
Well, Joel, it's been great to speak with you. I'm really excited to see more drive-ins, more platforms sign up for Harvest Hosts, and maybe one day become an RVer myself.
Cool. Thanks, Rebecca. I appreciate the time.
And that was Rebecca Pauley interviewing Joel Holland, the CEO of Harvest Hosts. Thank you again to Chad Kennerk for joining us earlier on in this episode. Please subscribe to our podcast. We've got new episodes coming up every week on Thursdays, and we will be covering the entirety of the global theatrical exhibition industry moving forward. On behalf of everyone here at the Box Office Company, thank you for listening, and we will talk to you again next week.